Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and my guest today is kind of funny. There's this thing called Potapalooza, and it is like podcasting on steroids. I can't even explain it. We'll kind of get into it, but that's where Tami and I met, and we really haven't spoken since, but I'm super excited because when we did talk, there were some really cool things that we were talking about, and I'm just going to read her bio and get into it. So Tami Jaffe is a success coach, energy shifter, and we know how we all feel about that, and speaker on topics of making better decisions and business growth. Tami guides her clients through the sometimes overwhelming prospect of starting and growing a new business, and I think we all know what that's about. Her Amazon #1 best-selling book, You Already Made the Decision, You Just Aren't Happy With It, is a guide on how to make better decisions or live with the ones you made. So without further ado, let's meet Tami.
Thank you, Iris. Great to be here with you.
Great to see you again. It's been like a minute.
Yes.
And, you know, I had a couple of other people from Potapalooza, and I was trying to explain, like, you can't explain it unless you do it. Like, you have to experience the madness that is, 10 to 15 interviews in an 8-hour period. And you literally take like 8 hours of your day and you're just in and out of, and for me, I was doing the interviewing. The first time I was the interviewee, and then the second time was the interviewer. And it was way different because it's like, how do you take an hour podcast and smush it down into, a half hour?
Yeah. Especially when you're used to doing the longer form, right? It's harder when you're
exactly.
But yeah, Potapalooza is, it's fun and intense at the same time. Like, it's fun because you're meeting new people, new podcasters, you're jumping into a room with someone you've never even talked to before and know very little about, and just having a conversation. And what I find so fun about it is, no matter who I'm interviewing with, we always have very different conversations, and it can go in completely different directions, even if the subject's the same.
Yes. I think that happened with us.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, because I had, oh my God. And I will say that it's different when I was interviewing the men compared to the women. Totally different.
Yeah. Different energy, different vibe.
It was different energy, different vibe. And I found that a lot of the guys just wanted to talk about themselves, which I thought was really interesting.
The ego came out. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were a couple that are, don't get me wrong, I think everybody was awesome, but it was just interesting seeing the difference, because when you were talking to the women, it wasn't ego. It was just talking about our stuff. And, so that was very interesting, because people are like, you don't have, like, is your podcast just for women? And I said, no, I've had guys on, but I go after, it's like a specific kind of guy that gets on here. It's not just, everyone. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm sure a specific type of women too. Like, you've got your understanding of what your people want.
Yes.
And you bring the right people to them to help them. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So tell us about Tami, your, journey, you, just all of it.
All of it. Well, that's a really raw. Just going to give
why we have an hour
there
for this. So.
Well, I grew up on a farm in Michigan. No, I'm not going to go that far back. No. I started off my career in corporate, and I spent 20 years in corporate accounting, in finance and technology, and worked my way up throughout, and got to a point that I realized I wanted something more. I wanted something bigger. I wanted something different. I didn't love the politics, I'll be honest, and just knew that I was meant to serve more people. I loved, people call me a mentor manager. And so when I started thinking about what I wanted to do, that mentorship kept coming up for me. And I started working with a coach. I started working with an energy healer because I was having some physical pain happening because of the stress I was under and the frustration I was feeling.
I've been hearing that a lot. With
Yeah.
that, yeah.
And it's, well, sitting at your desk plus all the stress of all the pressure and things coming at you. And it was through that combination that I realized I love the coaching. It's kind of what I had been doing as a leader, as a mentor, and in a different way.
Mhm.
And I wanted to take that as well as the energy work and combine those in helping people.
That's awesome. And, I've had people that have been on and they're like, I don't want to corporate bash. And I don't think that it's corporate bashing, but I think that corporate is right for some people and it's not for others. I think that, it's a different, obviously it's a different energy than owning your own business because you own your own business. And, but in corporate, there are certain, things that you have to do and certain practices that you have to do, and you have to follow the culture of whatever company
Mhm.
that you're in. And, sometimes that changes, right?
It
And
does, yes.
so, and you talk about the energy piece of it, and that's something that I've been kind of getting a shift on personally. Like my energy has changed, the trajectory of my business has changed because my energy has changed, and not in a negative way. It's just that I kind of I think the people that I work with now are different than the people that I used to work with. It's like
Mhm.
I need people to align with my values.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say my values have changed, but I think what I tolerate has changed. So,
Oh, that's such a great point.
yeah,
Yes. And not just what you tolerate, but putting those boundaries around things that
yep,
this is what I want and this is what I don't want, and being clear on that helps you to really shift some of that and
right,
understand that, these are the things I'm willing to put up with and these are the things I'm not, so that you can be more focused. So I love that.
right. And that's where the energy shifts happen, because I think that when I was putting up with the stuff that I was putting up with, I don't put up with stuff anymore. It's like it aligns or it does. It's my friend Shoshana says it perfectly. If it's not a full body yes, I don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't work with the
Beautiful.
person. I don't take on the project. I don't, if I don't walk in and it's like this,
Hmm.
I don't do it.
Yeah. And it's great to be in a place where you can make that decision, right?
Yes, I mean 100%. And it took a while, and
Mhm.
I may not even fully be there, but I'm there enough that if I have to take a little bit of a hit, I'm going to do it, because I can't. It's almost it almost costs me more. And I don't mean financially, right? I mean like energetically, in my soul. And that's more important to me than anything at this point. So,
Yeah, absolutely. We have to protect our own energy
oh
because
my God.
otherwise we just have nothing left to give. And so being really clear on what that is, being in the place where you can make those decisions. And I think sometimes it can be overwhelming for people
Mhm.
starting, right? People starting their business can be overwhelmed by all the different options, all the different things that you have to do. And it's hard to know at that point, what do you say yes to and what do you say no to?
And I don't think, when you first start, I don't think people know.
They don't.
I mean, when I first started, I was like, "Oh yeah, you want to work with me? Sure." And then like 2 months into it, I was like, "Oh my God, what?" Like I should have vetted this a little bit better, because at the end, some clients end up costing you more
Hmm.
than what they're paying you, just in time. And you talk about boundaries. I had a client when I first started, and I'm going to be careful because I don't want to give too much away because they'll know who it was, but zero boundaries. Like I gave that person so much free crap just because of they were a new business. I was a new business and I wanted to help them because I understood what being a small business was. And I would get texts at like 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday at night, like all of this stuff. And I finally had to send an email saying, "Hey, we need clearly to set boundaries here because you have none."
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
and I saved the email. just to kind of remind myself, because I had another client a few months ago and I was like, I got to set a boundary because this is not, and I set the boundary and it was fine. It was completely respected. But to know that, to be able to foresee it because you've been through it before, right? Is like,
Yes.
whoa, wait, I see this happening. Let's just stop this now.
Exactly. But sometimes you don't know when you haven't been through it. And so being able to
Right.
identify those things, that it's like, okay, I know I don't want to work with this type of person, or I know that this is going to be my boundary around when I'll receive or respond to. So that's my rule. Is it doesn't matter necessarily, because I'm going to turn my phone off after a certain time. If people are texting me, messaging me, I'm only going to respond during business hours. And so
Right.
even though my private clients get access to me, it's like within 24 hours and within business hours, I will respond. And so that way you can be clear with them. What is the expectation? And I think when we, as our own selves start stepping outside of that and disobeying our own boundaries, is
Right.
when they get confused, and then they just start wanting more. And they're like, well, she responded to me within 5 minutes last time. I'm just going to text her again at midnight and see if she responds. So being able to really be clear with ourselves is so important.
You're right about that. And there was a time where I felt that, and I'm getting better at it. My wife is like, I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, I got a call on a Saturday and she went, no.
Yeah.
I was like,
It's
okay. So I sent a text and I said, is this urgent? If it's urgent, I'll talk to you. If it's not, can it wait till Monday?
Yeah.
And they said, no, it can wait till Monday. Great. I was like, okay. And, because you're right, you have to set that boundary with yourself. I'm so used to being available that, I have to go, okay. And that was the mistake that I made with this one client, was I did not set, recently, I didn't set clear boundaries, because I didn't think I needed to with this client, and I completely did, which I found out later, but.
And I think it's something we all learn, right? It's you have to make the mistake once in order to know that you don't want to do it again. And so,
well, the insanity thing, I'm insane. So
yeah,
it took a while.
And same thing, even when I was in corporate, I was tied to my phone. I was managing a group that was responsible for daily pricing on the New York Stock Exchange. And we had to get pricing out for our company. And no matter what, it had to be done. So if there was an urgent issue, you had to respond. If we had problems, you had to be there. And so I remember so many times my husband and I would go on vacation, and we seemed to always be by water. He's like, I am going to throw your phone in the lake or in the pool or in the ocean, wherever we were, if you do not get off your phone, because I was tied to it 24/7.
Right.
And that was the mentality that I had, is that I had to always be available.
Right.
And so with moving into my business, I went to the opposite extreme initially, where I was like, I don't want a schedule. I don't want anybody on my schedule. I don't want meetings. And I had to wake up and say, okay, well, I want clients, so I need to have a
right.
But it was then setting the boundary. Okay, what does that look like? And scheduling people where I wanted them to be scheduled. It's not about opening up your entire calendar every single day and every single minute that you're free.
Right.
Be specific about, how are you going to work with people? What does that look like? How many hours a week is that? And then schedule that in. And so Mondays, are my kind of marketing and planning for the weekday. And then Fridays are kind of my catch up, do recordings and all the other stuff I need to do. And so I only work with clients typically Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And some of that's my groups and doing trainings and coaching hours with my groups on Wednesdays. And so now it's easier to say, okay, I've got specific hours. This is when I'm available. This is when you can schedule with me. And then having that structure in place has helped, myself. It's helped my family. Now I'm not worried about when things happen. I know when I can break away from things, and I'm not tied to my phone.
Which is nice. I mean, so like with the podcast, we have Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays blocked off. And after the first of the year, so we're stopping recording. I think December 5th is like our last one for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're not starting again until February, because these are like, this one will air in March or April. So if there's anything next year that you're thinking of promoting, let me know and we'll, do this now. But I mean, really, because it's like we have so many episodes that we've recorded because we were doing it like 3 days a week. And then finally I was like, oh, holy crap, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then, with my work schedule, like I stop it, I'll have like, I usually don't have meetings. I'll end them at 3:30. But this ran over because of something that I have going on next week. So, but I usually don't schedule stuff, up till 3:30 on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And, Monday for me is my in-person meeting day with my local clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fridays is usually I'll work, I have a half a day up till noon, and then afternoon, I'm done. I'm working on stuff, or I'm just kicking off because I need to just kind of like decompress, because then, my wife has a regular job. So, she's home on the weekends, and, I used to work all weekend.
Yeah.
Now I don't.
Yes, it's great to have that time together and be able to disconnect, right?
Yeah.
My husband doesn't see patients on Friday, so our Fridays are always flexible. Like,
oh, see, that's nice.
Yeah, sometimes we're working on something together. Sometimes we're both doing our separate things, and other times we're like, let's just go away for the weekend or do something with the kids.
Yeah, because you can. I mean, Kofi used to yell at me because, I would send him a text on Saturday, and he's like, "It's the weekend, stop working."
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, "You're right. I'm not going to." And we went to Hawaii in November, and we did have one issue, but I was in a traffic jam in Hawaii. I mean, the ocean was here, the mountains were here.
Yeah, tough.
And it was like, right? So it was like 1:00 in the afternoon. So I call him and he's like, "Why are you calling me? You're in Hawaii." I'm like, "I'm in a traffic jam and this client, blah, blah, blah." Because we were doing video for a client, and he went, "Seriously?" I said, "I'm getting ready to call her." So it was the only thing that I did, because in Hawaii, you're 5 hours behind everyone.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing that I did do. And he was like, "Oh my God, like if you call me again, I'm not even answering." So I was like, okay, but.
Well, and we need those people in our lives that will wake us up and be like, okay, seriously, can you just, unplug and be where you are, especially when we're ambitious women like we both are, and we want to see results, and we want, high achievers have a really hard time saying no to things and putting those boundaries in place. So, if you guys are listeners and you're that high achiever and you're just, the one who's always accomplishing things, trying to do more, think about how that's impacting other areas of your life. Because a lot of times we'll focus it in one area, and then the other areas don't get as much attention because we think one's more important at that time.
I mean, it's so true. And like my poor dogs, like I'm home, I work out of the house every day, and they're like, they sleep all day. I'm just messing with my heater because it's a little chilly in here. And, now they're sleeping, but I took a little break before, and it was like I left the house. They were like, "Oh my God, you're home." And I'm like, I'm right here, but for them, I'm not, because I'm not available. So I try to take between like a half hour and 45 minutes just to sit with them, whether we're watching TV, hanging out on the couch, just something to give them me time, because Heather will get home and she'll like throw, the ball. And so yesterday I actually had time. Today is Wednesday. Yes, it was Monday. It was like 70 something degrees here. So I was like, oh my God, I spent a half hour throwing the ball with them. And Piper loves, playing fetch, and Skylar usually doesn't. But she was like, "Throw the ball at me. Oh my God, you're out here with us." And so they were both, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die, because now you both want me to throw the ball, and I'm getting way more cardio than I thought. But it felt so good to be able to do that and to see them really enjoying it, that it made me go, you know what, I need to do that more often, because these are my kids.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you get to throw the ball to your dogs. I throw a softball with my 2 girls.
there you
That's
go.
what
Right?
they'll do. They'll be
Throwing
home
the ball.
soon and we'll be out throwing a softball or playing volleyball.
Yeah.
Because every night my daughter comes home and she's like, okay, mom, can we go outside and play ball? So we will head out. But you need that break too, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
being able to step away from the desk and being able to do things with your kids that you love, whether they're your child kid or they're your pet kid,
Yeah.
they need your attention too.
Yeah. And it also gives you like a mental break. Like you don't think about it, right? Because you're always like in it. And then you take that break. And I remember on Monday, I was like throwing the ball and I was trying to work out an issue with a client that I had and a vendor. It was like a double thing. And so when I stepped away and I was able to, play with them, like I think 15 minutes in, it was like, oh, yes. And then I figured it out by stepping away. I got to play with them for another 15, 20 minutes. And then I came in and handled what I needed to handle. But it was great for them. It was great for me. And just as a reminder for, you people out there that there was somebody who, gosh, where was I? I was at a networking event in Chicago. And this woman was like, I work all the time and I love it. I work 24/7. And I went, are you high? I mean, my filter is kind of gone. But, and she said, what do you mean? I said, you're not in business to work 24/7. You're in business so that you don't have to work 24/7. And she was like, oh. And then it was like, physician heal thyself. I got home and it was like, oh, yeah, I'm telling her that. And I mean, I'm not working 24/7, but I definitely was not taking as many breaks as I should have. Now I'm making it like a practice, that, it may not be the same time every day, but I am going to give myself that, half hour to spend with them so that, they don't think they only have one mom.
So. Well, and it's hard sometimes to build that in. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves. And so one of the things that we've done is anytime we do a retreat, I always have time scheduled afterwards for downtime. Need it both mentally, need it because physically you're exhausted. But I also I get so ramped up because I love doing events and I love doing retreats. And so you get so excited about it and you're like there with the people and you're, and so I also have a moment of, I don't get to go out and do that today too. And so I miss the people and I miss the event. And so I'll always schedule in a massage afterwards. I will schedule a day of downtime. We did an expo just this last weekend and it was on a Sunday and we normally don't work on the weekends. So I was like, I need some downtime on Monday before I jump right back into things, because if we're not, we just constantly go. And I've been there and I've done that before and I know where it leads. And it's not always leading to the result you think it's going to lead to. You think if you just work more, do more, you're just going to be more and more successful. But the truth is, like you're saying, the answers come during those downtimes.
Yeah.
The answers come when you're resting, right? There's books out there that show, if you have a problem you're trying to solve, write down the problem before you go to bed or go take a nap, and you will have the solution by the time you wake up, because your mind will figure it out when you are not focused on it. And so when we can give ourselves that space to do those things, it makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, for the people who are just starting out, it's not, granted, they don't have as much freedom to do it because they are trying to, they have their grind on and they're, trying to build things. But if you can, work it into your schedule, even 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, don't work through lunch, eat lunch. And this is literally the pot calling the kettle black, because it'll be 4:00 and I'll be like, oh crap, I haven't eaten. So I'm really trying to get better on that. But this is all just from experience, try to get into good habits in the beginning.
Yeah.
and they'll only get better because, I had obviously really bad habits and I'm trying to break them now after 10 years. So,
Well, we all get into those habits and they're bad.
yeah.
I mean, I just made a rule recently that I wasn't going to eat at my desk. I mean, because you know how many times I've just eaten lunch or taken breakfast into my office and started eating
Yep.
while working. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I just started in the last couple of months because I realized I had this pattern and I'm like, I need that break too. So for those of you listening, you're like, oh yeah, I do that too. Or you don't take those intentional breaks, schedule it in.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to get to going at first, but once you do, you realize that you are so much more productive.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we teach this in our time management class, but when you have that schedule and you mentioned those just getting started, a lot of times you're working a full-time job and you're trying to do this on the side. And you're like, I don't have time for anything.
Mhm.
And what I realized is I created a schedule and I was working full-time. I was a vice president at a Fortune 100 company. I was the head of real estate technology there. I had a lot of responsibilities, but I figured it out. And so what I did is every Wednesday night, I went into my husband's office and that was my school night, I called it. I was working on my certification, doing the trainings, everything I needed to. And then I had set hours on Saturdays as well where I would work with clients. But I also put into my schedule exactly when I was going to be spending time with my family, when was going to be kid time. And so we would have certain things we would do on Sundays. And then at night, like we have dinner time, we would play games at dinner. And I realized that I was being so much more intentional with them that even though I had less time or it felt like I had less time, they were feeling like I was spending more time with them because before what I was doing is I would come home and like we're eating dinner and I'm thinking about all the things I need to do at work and I'm then pulling out my computer and doing things and I wasn't being intentional with my time with them.
Right.
And so if that's you and you guys struggle with the family time or having the balance, be more, and I know being more rigid on your schedule doesn't sound fun, but it actually helps in so many ways to have that plan.
Right.
Because now I can say, hey, honey, I'm going to be with you in 20 minutes. This is mommy and you's time. We're going to spend the next hour together and we're going to do something you want to go do. And then they're excited about like they have that dedicated time.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, and you're talking about eating at your desk. I'm just like, I munch, but, so that's kind of what advice do you have for somebody? Because there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are still working, but there are people that aren't, right? And they're just starting out. So, what advice do you have for someone who's thinking about, becoming an entrepreneur or who's a new entrepreneur?
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations. It's an exciting time. It can be scary and exciting. I call these your OMG moments, those moments that excite you and scare you at the same time. Those are the moments we should live for in our life. Those are the moments we keep working for. And the advice I have for you when you're getting started, which is just getting going, one, find someone who's been there before and can guide you through it because there is so much to learn. Mm-hmm. And what you will find is as soon as you put that entrepreneur hat on and you're like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur now, all of a sudden you start getting targeted with all these different ads and all these different people saying, you've got to try this one thing. I've got everything you need to get all the leads in the world. And I've got the one thing that's going to make you millions. And you get sucked in to these too good to be true ads that keep popping up in your Facebook because every social media now knows you're an entrepreneur. And you don't know what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing. And all of them have a place and a time. They're not all right for startups. And so understanding what to do kind of when in your business is so critical. And understanding that the influencer you're seeing out there, that's not your starting point.
Right.
You can build to get there. But they did a lot of things to get there, and it may feel like they were an overnight success, but they probably spent 5-10 years getting to that overnight success.
Yes. So I always say that an overnight success takes about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think that, all of those things, some of them aren't right. Some of them are scams. I mean, they see, fresh blood. And I just did a post on LinkedIn today. Stop selling me.
Mhm.
I am so freaking tired of people going, "Hey, Iris, I want to connect." And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And then and it seems like this really sincere thing. And then the next thing I know is like, "Hey, so we help agencies." And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm blocking your ass. Like, I'm done. And so it happened again. And this woman was like talking to me for about a week, and very superfluous kind of conversation. I was like, I already know where this is going. And so I said to her, I said, look, if you're really not trying to build a relationship and you're just trying to sell me something, I'm just not interested. I have everything that I need. And she said, well, let me tell you about, and I literally just said,
Right.
I am not interested. And she went anyway. So that showed me, number one, she didn't respect a damn thing that I was thinking or saying. And number two, this was her idea. So I did this post, and it was like perfect timing, because I was just like, I am done. Stop trying to sell me. If you don't tell me where you know me from, who referred you, whatever. And if you do and you still try to sell me, I'm blocking you.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're my best friend's, friend. No. If you're trying to sell me something, don't. Not unless we've spoken at least for 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and I know you and I like you and I trust you. I'm not buying anything.
Yeah.
And I'm really passionate about it because I kind of feel like it wastes my time. I'm very genuine in building relationships with people. I don't, I don't sell. People buy from me. I don't sell to them. They get to know me. They get to like me. They know what I do for a living. They see my podcast. They see all the shit that I put up on LinkedIn. They know who I am, what I do. And then they say, hey, I'd love to work with you. And even then I'm like, great, let's have a conversation. I don't say yes right away because I don't know that, I don't work with just everybody.
Right. Yeah. And I love that, getting into the sales conversation and how that happens for you, because I think that's one of the biggest things that people going from employees to entrepreneurs struggle with is the sales conversation.
Right.
What do you say? How do you say it? What do you do? And they feel all this pressure to close every single conversation.
Yep.
And it's not meant to have to close every conversation because you're weeding people out. They're weeding you out.
Right.
And so it's all about building that rapport, understanding what they really need, and making sure you are the right fit before you even offer anything. And I will, I tell my clients this all the time. Do not make an offer until you know that they already are like, yes, I need to work with you.
Yes.
Don't even offer it. There's no point. You're just going to turn people away.
Right. Right. I remember when I first started, so I was in I'm in Lafayette, Indiana, and I was in newspaper advertising sales. And so I was always selling, right? It was always selling. And that's what they trained us, to do was sell, sell, sell. And then when I started my first, company, I was still selling all the time to my friends. We'd be out to dinner and they were business owners. And I'd be like, hey, we could build a website for you and blah, blah, blah. And finally, a friend of mine, and I'm glad he said it, was like, you don't have to be on all the time. Stop. And I was like, I didn't even realize I was on all the time. And it made me, it really stopped me and made me go, oh, crap. Like, I didn't realize it. So then I had to be really aware and cognizant of the conversations I was having and what was coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of training to not do it. And then I finally, stopped. And that was, probably 8, 9 years ago, probably maybe 7, 8 years ago. But, I learned. And when I see these people, it's like, they've been in business a long time. They should know. I'll look at their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Well,
and it's like, dude, you should know this, and so I get more frustrated. If it's somebody who's brand new, because that happened to me a few months ago. I mean, I literally sent, and I could, show a screenshot of it. I said, I'm going to do this to help you. You need to build relationships before you try to sell people something, and, you could take that advice and do what you want with it. But I'm just letting you know that people aren't going to buy from somebody if they don't know, like, or trust them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
building that trust is so important.
Oh my God. That's like the key.
Well, and so many of the messages you're getting are automated. It's AI now. And so they're not even a real person. It's just this workflow they've built to send you the messages.
Right.
And so they're not building that rapport. So absolutely people need to get to know you. So how can you put content out that's going to show them your expertise? How can you share something of value with them so that they can now see that you are providing value and not value at, okay, that's going to be $97, but value that they can see instantly and get some results in before they take that next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And people don't, they don't understand it. And I hope that, with these episodes that the people that are listening, glean, if they don't glean anything else from this, if they glean that. I got this message, I don't know, it doesn't matter when it was, but it was on LinkedIn, and it said, hey, Iris, would love to connect, blah, blah, blah. And I said, sure. And I connected. And then I think the message that I got back was, hey, Michelina, thank you so much for connecting. And I went and I wrote back, and I, do curse on this, but I'll behave. I was like, who the is Michelina?
Yeah.
And I went delete. I said, whether this is AI or if you're a real person, you need to get your shit together. Because I was just like Michelina, and I did a post on that. And people, I will tell you, if you keep doing this stuff, I'm just going to keep posting about it because it is the most annoying thing in the world. I do 3 posts a week on LinkedIn, and I do the podcast on Tuesday. I do some kind of a lesson on Wednesday, and today was Stop Selling Me. And Thursday, it's something personal. So the people get to know, who I am, and they get to know my values, and they get to, and I have it set like that on purpose because I never sell them.
Yeah.
I never say, hey, are you, I will say, do you want to learn more? Let's hop on a call.
Yeah.
Let's hop on a call. Let's get to know each other because, that's important to me. It's not just important that they know me. It's important that I know them. So I know if I can help them because I'm not going to work with somebody that I can't help because then I can't, what am I doing? I'm taking money and I'm not, they're not getting results and they're going to be like, whoa, she's a real, piece of work. So
yes.
So it's a double-edged thing is, because you want to get to know me. I want to get to know you.
Yeah. But I love that you do that. I love the consistency there. I mean, consistency is so important in your business, right? Just you're showing up. You have certain days that you do different styles, different types of videos, talk about different things. And so people see you and you're consistently showing up, you're consistently sharing, you've got your podcast, and that's what helps you build the momentum. And too many times people, they try the one thing, like it didn't go as well as I wanted. So I'm going to go try something else, but you're not going to get the results from your first Facebook Live or your first LinkedIn Live. You've got to be consistent and keep showing up and keep bringing the message and start building that in order to get the momentum.
Right. And I think that a lot of people out there are, well, I'm going to post once in a while. And it's like, I had a client who was posting every 6 months. And I said, I'm just going to give you advice. You're going to do this on your own, but I'm going to give you the advice that you need to be a little bit more visible than once every 6 months, because especially with what you're trying to do, they're not going to know you. They're going to know that you show up every once in a while. And if you show up every once in a while here, how are you going to show up, in your business.
Right.
And they may be somebody who shows up all the time for their clients, but you don't get that consistency. People don't think that, you're consistent in what you do. And that's why I try to be really consistent. I try to be consistent in my messaging. One of the things that I'm passionate about now is ADA compliance. And I'm speaking about that everywhere that I can.
Yeah.
Because, there's DEIAB out there and disabilities aren't included in that.
Mm-hmm.
How? Like, is that even possible? Right. But it's so important to me that's what my soapbox has been on. It's just been, that. And that's gotten so much traction. And I didn't do it to get traction. I did it because it's a passion of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But that comes across when people see that you're passionate about stuff. They're like, oh, well, hell, number one, I didn't know that was a thing. And number two, now that I do, can we talk about that? Is that something you can help me with? 100%. Yes, I can. But they wouldn't know that if I wasn't talking about it. But again, it wasn't, I wasn't talking about it to get clients. I was just talking about it because it's just really like, why leave a portion of the population out, right? Like, why make the user experience on your website uncomfortable for a certain part of the population? It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And a lot of people who haven't been exposed to that don't even think about it sometimes. So you being able to share that message and make people more aware is going to make an impact, which is awesome.
Yeah. I spoke to the National Institute of Social Media last week on it. It was the first presentation that I ever gave that wasn't like a BNI presentation.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I spoke publicly. And it was a little weird because I'm speaking publicly, but the other part of it was just how people really weren't thinking about it. And the ones that did, and it was great. They were like, oh, this is like so important. And the ones that didn't were like, oh my God, I never even thought about it.
Yeah.
The other thing that they don't think about, and, from like a business perspective, is if you have employees, if you have 5 or more W-2 employees and your website isn't ADA compliant, you can be sued.
Mm-hmm.
And, some people think it's a scare tactic, and it's like, it's not a scare tactic. It is an actual fact. There are bots going around.
Yeah.
People have set these bots around and they are checking websites for businesses, and, it is what it is. So there's like a moral piece to it, but then there's also a financial piece to it as well, that, people are starting to, notice it, and people are, if you're not compliant, then, you could get in trouble. So it's, again, there's like all these, I feel like in marketing, there's all these like double-edged swords, right? It's like, there's, the moral piece, but then there's like the legal piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I try not to talk about the legal piece right away because it scares people. I did a webinar and I mentioned that, and somebody went into like a complete panic. I was like, oh my God, Iris said that we can be sued, and, all of this stuff. And it was like, no, that's not why that wasn't why I said it. I wanted you to be aware, not to be panicked.
Right. Yes.
And so when I present now, it's like we redid the presentation to where, yes, legal is part of it, but you should really do it just to be a morally, correct person because,
Yes, because you're helping other people and giving that availability to others. And I think there's a lot of things out there that people just aren't aware that those are rules, those are regulations, those are things you need to do. Mm-hmm. And so when we can bring light to those things, it brings that awareness, helps people to put the right things in place, because it's when you're working for somebody else is giving you all the rules and the regulations and everything. And now you've got to figure all that on your own. And so not being overwhelmed by it, but just seeking out the right advice and the right, legal advice, accounting advice, finance, all of those areas where it's not your expertise, just have the right people in your pocket.
Right. Right. And when we build websites now, I actually have a developer who is strictly for, clients that need the ADA compliance.
Awesome.
Because it's, it keeps them safe. And, I feel that I'm doing, another good service,
Yeah,
to the people of the planet. I mean, that's,
absolutely. And you filled a gap, right?
yes.
The gap
Yeah.
in the industry.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, there are, seasoned entrepreneurs out there that have gone through obstacles and stuff like that. So what advice do you have, or is there an obstacle that you've overcome? Or I don't know if you can hear that. My dog's going nuts, but sorry if you can. What's an obstacle that you've overcome or that you're going through? Or
Yeah, it's such a great question. I mean, I think at every phase of business, we go through different obstacles. And one that we've gone through recently, I think, is just making a big shift. You get to a point in your business and things are starting to run smoothly and you've got certain programs in place. And then you realize you want to make some changes. And how do you go through those transitions and communicate that with your clients, communicate that with your staff, communicate that with the teams, and making sure that everyone's on the same page? And so that was something we had to lay out recently with our businesses. I made some shifts because, we have, I have my business, my coaching business. We have, my husband has a chiropractic business, which I'm involved in for many aspects of leadership and marketing. And then we also started a laser sculpting business. And
oh, cool.
yeah. And so as I realized I was like being pulled in all these different directions, I'm like, I need to streamline some things I'm doing in my coaching business. So I made some changes and some shifts, and being able to work through that communication with your clients of what does that mean? What does that look like? Why am I doing this once, first? And then what does it mean for you? How does it impact you?
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I've learned is, you've always heard the over deliver. Well, when you're going to make a change in a way that they're excited that you're making the shift, that you're making a change. And you can apply this too. Like if you ever make a mistake, get people excited that you made a mistake by giving them something more than they were ever expecting.
Right. I love that.
And so, we've done this, like, even if you're, we're doing an event and some reason the link wasn't working and people are getting frustrated. We're like, okay, everyone's going to get access to this training for free now because we just want them to show up and feel more excited that we made a mistake. Mm-hmm. I love that tip. I think that's something for you guys to keep in mind as you move forward. Whatever it is, how can you make it even more valuable to them? Even if it's a change that you think that's going to impact them and they may not be as excited about, how do you make it more exciting for them? How do you make it fit into what they want? And if you ever make that mistake, how can you make it even more, make them happy that you made a mistake? I mean, something we don't think about, like how can you make someone happy that you actually made a mistake?
Right. Right. Which is awesome. I mean, and you always see the cool thing about it is like you can have clients and then you can have fans.
Yeah.
Right. And when you make a fan out of a client, that's, they're your biggest cheerleader. They want you to succeed.
Yeah.
And I think that some people don't get that. It's like, well, a client is a client. It's like, no, I mean, I would say probably, and I'm going to be kind to myself and maybe even more, at least 80% of my clients are fans because I always go above and beyond. If a mistake is made, they get way more than, you know what I mean? I do the same thing. And I also think that, for me, I'm very relationship based. So my business is built on relationships. And for me, if I don't know my client, I don't know how I can help them. Mm-hmm. So I get to know them. I had a client that, I've been working with for 1.5 years and we never met. And I was in Denver. Well, now it'll be like a few months ago, but I was in Denver and we got to meet. And we had dinner and we spent the day together. And it was like, now this client is now a friend who she refers me to everybody because, what we're doing is working and all the other stuff. But, I have a fan and, I'm her fan.
Mm-hmm.
because the work that she does is phenomenal, and she's just an amazing human being, you know. And now that we met, it's like, you know, you get energy via, you know, this,
Yeah.
but when you're in person, there's like a whole different, you know, different vibe. I'm in a group called the Dames, and we had our fun friends, and that was why I was in Denver. And it was like 106 women who had, you know, the same, pretty much the same mission, the same, you know, everything. And I probably met about 15, 20, 30 of them online. And then in October, I actually got to meet them. And it was amazing because it was like the same, the energy was escalated, but it was the same. It was that same loving feeling that you felt, you know, through the screen, that same, you know, connection that you felt amplified. And it was just amazing. So,
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I know. I have a client. I just told her I'm coming out to California soon, and we worked together for 2 years now, but we haven't met in person. And so the excitement level was just like, I get to finally like meet you and hug you and
yeah. I mean, that's, you know, and I ate real Denver food, which is like game. That's another story, but it was good. You know, it was good. But so what is your differentiator? Like, what makes you different from all the other, you know, coaches and
yeah, great question. I think for me, my focus is really helping people understand what they should be doing when. And so being really clear on, okay, if you're at the startup phase, this is where you need to start. And these are the things you can do. And then as we move to the next phase, these are the things you're going to add in. And the next phase, these are the next things we're going to add in. And then as you scale and become that influencer, what does that look like? And how do you continue to grow from there? And so I think the differentiator is, there are so many business coaches out there like, this is the one thing you need to do, or you just need to do Instagram and do it this way, or you need to do YouTube or this way. I'm always looking at who the person is, right? What are their skill sets? What are the best things that they're going to be able to go do that aren't going to hold them back? What does your business look like? So how do we align your business to the right platform? And then what are the things you need to be stepping out and doing right now? And so getting them focused, getting them to understand exactly where they are and how we can help them move forward, how we can jump those levels quickly by staying focused and by doing the things that are going to work for you based on the phase you're in, by understanding where your clients hang out, by understanding what they're doing and where they're at. So I think that's one of the things that differentiate me, because I haven't seen any business coaches out there that really tell you, do this, don't do that. Like there's too many out there that are just saying, yes, do this one thing and that's what's going to make you your millions. Well, that one thing isn't always right based on where that person is or where their audience is.
Right. And honestly, you know, you're not going to make millions right away. You have to go through things, and you have to do things, and you have to, you know, figure it all out. It's yeah. I mean, I was talking to somebody today. I like puzzles. Mm-hmm. That's why my business model works for me, because we're all-in-one marketing solutions, but I work with only contractors. I have no employees.
Yeah.
So for me, somebody comes to me and I put a customized plan together. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like, ooh, this piece goes here, and this piece goes here. And it's fun for me, right? It's like, I love what I do, but it took a long time to figure out, you know, what my thing is. Like, I knew it was marketing. I knew it was going to be websites. I knew it was going to be, you know, all the things, but, you know, the all-in-one piece, you know, and not having to deal with 20 people to get your marketing done, that came together this year. Yeah. And when it happened, it was like this big, duh, like, you know, this aha moment that was seriously like a huge duh moment. And I kind of laughed because it was like, I could have been doing this for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But I couldn't, because I wasn't I wasn't there here, right?
Yes, the mindset, so big.
Oh, huge, huge.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I love, we have clients go through our boot camp, and that's one of the biggest things that people say is, they felt like they had all these puzzle pieces starting their business and they did not know how to put them together.
Right.
Like, we go through your programs and you just lay it all out. You're like, step by step by step, do this, do this, do this, do this. And, I was just actually, before we jumped on this, recording some of our mindset trainings that we do, because mindset is the key throughout it all. Like, I can give you strategies all day long and other people can give you strategies, but if your mindset is saying, no, you're not good enough, you can't do that, you're not the expert, you're never going to go do it.
Right.
Or you're not going to do it the right way. You're not going to step out with the confidence that you need. You're not going to have the courage to actually go do the things you need to do. And you're going to avoid it. You're going to procrastinate. You're going to, find other things to keep you busy and then say, well, it doesn't work.
Right.
And so throughout everything we do, we're working on the mindset.
100%. And I, my new thing is like, you can come to an obstacle and you can come to a wall and you can use it as a stopping stone or a stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And I always look at them as stepping stones, and I don't look at mistakes. Mistakes to me are lessons. If you don't learn, then it's a mistake. But if you learn, then it's a lesson, right?
Exactly.
It's all part of it. And, your mindset, I think, is 90% of the game. Because if you don't think you can do it, you're not going to do it. You're just going to talk yourself out of it every single time. But when you get to that point that you're like, it's almost like, what is it? The little engine that could, I know I can, I know I can, I know I can. And you get to that I know I can piece, you're going to soar. You're just going to soar, because it's just going to be this like, the sky's the limit at that point. Mm-hmm. Because you believe in yourself. And not only do you believe in yourself, but you believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. You believe in what you're selling. If you don't believe in what you're selling and what you're offering, nobody else is going to believe it.
Absolutely.
Right. No one's going to believe it.
Yep. So in my book, I talk about the formula for a lasting change. And, the book is all about how to make better decisions or make those lasting changes in your life. And the formula I use is the clarity trifecta. And it gets into a lot of what we're talking about. When you want to make a change, you have this clarity bubble that I call it's like really small when you're starting out. It's like the size of a penny. And you're like, yes, I kind of want to do something. I have this idea. I want to make a shift. I want to get out of a relationship. I want to start a business. I want to lose the weight. I want to, do something different. And you want to make a change, but you don't know how to do it yet. You don't know who can help you with it. You don't know what the results are going to be. You don't know what the goal is. Like, there's all these questions you have. And so as you start getting answers to those questions, that clarity bubble starts to grow. And on the outside of that bubble is a triangle. And that's the clarity trifecta. And when you start to get clarity around what it is you want to do, see others who are doing it and start to believe that it can happen, your confidence starts to grow. And then you start to get results, and your confidence, that faith and belief in yourself, like you were saying, starts to grow. Mm-hmm. And then you get the courage. And that's the other side of the triangle. You get the courage to take the first step. And then the next step becomes a little more clear, and you take the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And as your courage starts to grow, you start doing more of what's working, and the consistency around that helps you to grow, to get momentum. And then the bottom part of the triangle is your commitment. And everybody, will say it starts with commitment. And yeah, you have to have enough commitment to go get the answers and get the clarity for what you want to do. Mm-hmm. But it's really hard to be committed to something that you're not clear on. It's really 100%. Hard. Yeah. And so you've got to get the questions answered. And as you do, your commitment will start to grow as well.
Yeah. And it's so funny. So like, I think it was about 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I was going to hire a salesperson. And they said, well, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Like, how do I sell you? And I couldn't explain it. I was like, oh shit, I don't know how to never mind, this is not the right time. And then when I did get clear, I interviewed a couple of salespeople. That's another conversation for another day. Whew, that was interesting. But I was clear on it, and I could explain, this is what I do. This is what I need you to do. And now I have somebody out there who's doing sales for me.
Awesome.
And I told them, like, the first thing I said was, don't be like the LinkedIn salespeople. We don't want to go out and scare people. We want to build relationships. So you build the relationship. If you can't build the relationship and you think that it's somebody that we can help, but make sure that it's somebody, I don't just want to sell people.
Right.
I want to know that I can help them. And if you can't figure that piece out, I'll figure that piece out, and then we'll go from there. But it's really important to me that, my values are passed on, because people who work with me know my values.
Yes.
And so, because I have this sales, and it was hard saying, "Oh, okay, I'm going to let somebody do sales," because I'm going to be speaking, and so I'm going to be doing other things. And so, I'm not going to be able to do that piece of it, which is fine. And I'm trying to let it go, but it's got to be done right.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest thing.
Yeah. And I think, that's the big thing with sales is you have to learn how to do sales and learn how to show up confidently and have the courage to actually make the ask and get those things and understand what you actually do, right? So you can explain it to others.
Yes.
Before you can ever go hire a salesperson.
And be clear on your ask.
Yes.
Right. And be clear who you're asking.
Yeah. And this is the other thing, with AI is so many people are like, well, I'm just going to use AI to go write my copy and create all this content. And the thing is, like, AI will work to an extent, but when people actually show up and you look and sound different than what was in your message, they are going to feel this huge disconnect. And that is going to make them distrust you even more.
Right.
So if you are one who is using AI, like I love AI, I'm not going to lie. Like I use it for ideas. I use it for generation.
There's a place for it, right? And I use it to clean up my copy because I write well, but my grammar sometimes can be off, and I'll drop it in and say, just clean my grammar.
Yep.
And people know. They see me on LinkedIn, they know who I am. That's
absolutely,
and it's not AI. AI has its place. I think AI can do cool things like Kofi was talking about, in design. It can make this really cool background for you. It could do, these things, but when it comes to your voice is your voice.
Absolutely.
There's only so much that you can do with it. So, how do people find you? Well, first off, and tell us about your book real fast.
Yeah. So my book is, as you mentioned, it's called You Already Made the Decision. You're just not happy with it. So in the book, you'll get some quick tips on how to make quick decisions. And then we give you the formula for lasting change. And we dive deep into each of these areas to help you make the difference and not just making the decision, but actually following through with it. Because so many people say they've made the decision, they want to make a change, and then next day they're right back where they started, or a month later they're right back where they started, because they don't know how to make that lasting change. They don't know how to stay committed to it to make it happen. So that's what the book is about.
That is awesome. And where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at TamiJaffe.com. I'd love to share a special gift with your people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for those of you getting started, or if you've already started and you're still not getting that consistent income, or you want to ramp up your consistent income, if you go to thejumpstartkit.com, you can grab my free gift for you guys today. And it's going to teach you how to get a jumpstart on your clients, how to get a jumpstart on your strategy, how to get a jumpstart on the tools that you need to be using every day to help you get clients and leads, and how to get a jumpstart on your numbers and stay focused so that you can actually hit your goals.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And the last question that I ask all my guests is, what lights your fire?
Oh, what lights my fire? My girls light my fire. And my family, definitely lights my fire. I love to travel. So travel is one of the things that My daughter called us the traveling family a few years ago as we were on one of our trips because we just love to go different places. And that gets me excited. Be able to know that I have trips coming up, places I want to go, people I want to see, but doing it with my family and being able to be together lights my fire.
That is so cool. Well, thank you for being here and thank you for taking the time out of your day. Hang on one second. I'm going to say goodbye and then I'll come right back. Everybody, thank you again so much for hanging out for an hour plus. I tell people, they're like, how long is it? I'm like, it's an hour. And they're like, oh, an hour. And it just goes by so quick. So thank you all for, hanging in there with us. And thank you for loving all of the guests that I'm bringing on. I love the comments that you all are sending and that you're thrilled with the people that I have on. I don't just ask anybody to be on. So I think it's awesome that I'm right. Not that I'm right, but that I'm right and that I'm bringing the right people to you. So, please like, share, subscribe. When you subscribe, you get a notification of a new episode. You know this, I say this like every single week. Keep downloading. The more you download, the more numbers I'm getting, and it's wonderful. And really, I just appreciate all of you letting me know that you're taking me on your hikes and that you're exercising, especially the ones that are exercising, because then I feel like I'm getting my workout. And that's pretty awesome. So thank you. I appreciate you all. And until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.